That's another challenge I see in business too, is most people are afraid to say no, or they're afraid to have those hard dialogues.
Yeah.
We've got a culture that's become very, it's become very filled with yes, 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 we can do that. Yeah, sure, we'll do that. Even when they know they can't get those outcomes or they can't get that result, so which creates a lot of friction, a lot of people who get let down.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. As business owners and entrepreneurs in today's world, it's critical to embrace not only differentiation, but thinking totally outside the box. Today's guest embodies that more than perhaps any other guest we've had on this podcast. Brook Bishop has worked with over 50,000 individual coaching clients from every walk of life in virtually every country on earth, including working alongside Tony Robbins for 15 years as his executive of business solutions. He's created coaching training, corporate coaching programs, and coaching sales strategies from his vast experience and coaching studies. In his personal life, Brook is a rogue maverick who's known to break the mold and consistently think outside the box.
Brook, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
I'm stoked to be here with you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, man. We're looking forward to the conversation. You know, we like to get to know the person we're talking to and the story behind the human being, if you will. So if you don't mind, give us a quick turn of like where you started and what led you to this space.
Yeah, so I actually originally went to school to be a doc. So I was going to go to Stanford and go that route. And as soon as I started getting into my undergrad and working on a lot of my clinical hours, I was like, yeah, that's not the route that I want to run. And my uncle actually really stepped in to mentor me at that point in time. And so we went to work with his mentor, who was a real estate sales trainer in Los Angeles. And that was kind of the first domino of things. I was 18 at the time. And from there, I got recruited to the largest coaching company on the planet at that point in time. With
Brian Buffini, right?
Mr. Brian Buffini. Yep. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we had about 350 coaches that were there on staff, and learned a ton working with Brian. Learned a lot about relational business practices in the real estate sector. And from there, I actually got recruited to work with Tony. And that was really it's just kind of this rapid progression into the world of personal development and marketing and sales and all that goes with it.
That's fantastic. That's a bit of a skyrocket.
Oh yeah. What amazing experience you had. Like, what were some of your most memorable moments throughout that time with Brian and with Tony?
It's really interesting. So, because they're vastly different companies, vastly different human beings. Brian's world was very, very organized, very structured, corporate wise. I mean, I think they've won best company to work for in Southern California. I think it's something like 15 years running at this point. Really, really solid organization. But their market positioning, they somewhat capped out in terms of how big they could grow. Then you couple that over into Tony's world, which was, I don't want to say it was the polar opposite. It's pretty dang close to being the polar opposite, where it was not corporate, very, I'll even use the word disorganized. But he wide open in terms of his vision and how big he was able to scale and grow his organization. So actually my first day with Tony is kind of wild. So coming out of the world of Brian's, I was in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is how everyone's companies are, because that's all I knew at that point. And my first day going to work at Tony Robbins, as I was walking down the aisles they were taking me to my cubicle space. There was one of those like, what the heck is going on kind of moments, because literally the cubicle walls into my zone were bent in, like literally collapsing into my cubicle space. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Well, then somebody rather large had sat on the desk. And so it was like buckled in the middle. The drawers were falling out. I'm like, okay. And if that wasn't bad enough, I'm like, there's no chair at my desk space. I'm like, what is going on? And so it was very interesting, because I asked HR, I'm like, hey, is it supposed to be like this? And their response was, that's what we got. And so my very first day, when I walked in, I walked straight back out, and I went to Home Depot, and I had to go get parts to fix the desk and my cubicle walls. And I went and bought a chair at the store. And that was how things kicked off. And the fascinating piece with it because my mindset had to be in the space of figured out and like my success was going to be my own, because it started there, it literally was, it just radically transformed how I played in that space and what it was required to be successful working with Tony.
Okay, so not knowing, as we talked before we got here into the stage here, how we were going to take this conversation. Let's talk about Brook. All right, so there's a couple of things here. Number one, that didn't scare you off, apparently, right? And then you're just like, okay, but I got to be able to sit. I got to be able to, probably need to put some stuff in some drawers. And so you did go and fix it. Do you think that was a setup, if you would? You think it was accidental and then you just flourished out of that? Because as a person that employs people, I'm fascinated by that. I really am. Accident or not, I don't care.
I don't know if it was directly intentional. I think because when I first started to work there was back, when did I start with Tony? I started with Tony in 2007. So for those of us that were in business back then, what came right after 2007 for simple math was 2008.
Right.
Uh-huh. Oh, yes.
Mortgage debacle.
Yes.
The world went crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that was really fascinating, and I don't know if it was a directly intentional piece, because I don't know if my trauma was my own, but I know that they were definitely hard on people when they were coming in. There was a lot of, I don't hear superstar, and they would turn people away to see how they would play. After somebody got hired, I didn't see anybody else that went through the same hurdles that I went through. But yeah, I mean, it was very fascinating because that next year they came in and said, hey, with where the company's at, we don't have any money for marketing right now. So you're going to have to figure out how to swim on your own. You're going to figure out how to get leads. You're going to have to figure out how to do enrollments. Like, your success is in your hands, but we can no longer feed you to support you, because that's just the status of where the world was at.
Right.
So the people who got the most resourceful, they made it and they thrived. I happen to be one of those people. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, if there was people that were expecting life to be the way it was prior to that, they got pushed out really quick.
Yeah. Well, and so what do you, this has to be a driving factor for you. Like, you have to have, your life experience has led you to be a problem solver, no doubt. Right. Like, you just innately have that can-do attitude, don't you think?
Yeah. There's a yin and yang that goes with it. Right. Because I definitely move quick and I'll make decisions rapidly and I'll go. Where it can be on the other side of that can be a challenge is when you have a team of people that are working with you. If it's just rapid fire, here's the solution, go put it in play. There can definitely be a element of everyone else on the team needing to keep up, or they're having to roll with the changes in the wind, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I mean, I can identify with both sides of that, because I see you as a doer. You're just going to go get it done, right? Like, whatever needs to happen here, I'm just going to go get it done. And, one of the things that I know as I was looking through your information and we were preparing for today, you mentioned that you are always kind of pushing the edges, doing these crazy fitness routines and diet routines and so forth. And now I see that, like, that go get it done kind of attitude coming through that. Give us a little bit more behind why that appeals to you so much, just like pushing the edges and does that work for you?
It has, and it does. There's also, I think I don't know if I want to say there's a limit. Ooh, how's that for a bad word to bring in?
Only a limit to things that may harm you.
Yeah, well, and here,
Right.
yes. Well, there's so many cans we can open with that. But there's definitely a moment of redlining. When I started working with Tony, I had a full head of hair. So there's this element of, we'd go to an executive meeting, and there was one meeting in particular I remember. It was about, what time in the morning? It was about 4 a.m. in the morning. So we had started at 9 a.m. the previous day, just to give you an idea of, in that environment, we went till we reached the outcome. And so I think that's part of what conditioned that. But, that we were starting to nod off. It was at 4 a.m. trying to still maintain and hold focus. And Tony, instead of being like, hey, let's call it for the day, let's go to sleep, he's like, hey, go jump in the cryo chamber. And it's like, okay, here I'm nodding off. And now instead of going to sleep, it's jumping in the cryo chamber and dropping it to 280 minus 280 or whatever it was. Wow. But then coming back in, it's like, okay, let's keep going. So there's this element of conditioning for meeting the
Mm.
outcome, which honestly, I see so many people that are in the business space, people that are in the marketing space and the sales space, they're not outcome driven, right? And that's where I
Right.
see the wheels fall off for so many. But there's also, I think there's another end of that, which is when you redline for so long, it can also have a negative effect if you're not balancing and taking care of yourself.
Oh, I think you put
Agreed.
that beautifully. Beautifully. Maybe they're not outcome driven, but they're exhaustion driven, right? And they're
Mhm.
thinking, I'm exhausted and I can't take another step. But what that forces you to do is really lean in on your resilience and realize that, okay, instead of doing this, which is everybody's solution, let's just go rest and get some sleep. It would be mine, let's be real. But instead of that, he gets you to look at it a different way. And I think that's why he's who he is today. What have you taken from that?
Yeah, it's interesting because with my own business and with how we work with our clients, there's definitely that core ethos of being results driven, outcome driven, and at all costs, whatever it takes to get there. But there's also that other side of the coin of like, okay, we're human beings having a human experience, and perhaps level setting expectations, or perhaps having honest, hard conversations early versus waiting for the ship to explode and then have hard conversations later.
Mhm.
And that's another challenge I see in business too, is most people are afraid to say no, or they're afraid to have those hard dialogues.
Yeah.
We've got a culture that's become very it's become very filled with yes, 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 we can do that. Yeah, sure, we'll do that. Even when they know they can't get those outcomes or they can't get that result. So which creates a lot of friction, a lot of people who get let down.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth. Yeah.
Agreed. I definitely agree with, being in the personal branding space for 12 years, we didn't invent the space, but we're very long in the tooth in the space, much longer than most. And it's interesting, what I mean, where you're a part of something before it's actually defined. And then you see that begin to be defined, and many times by a mass populace that doesn't even understand it. And so that's interesting.
Yeah, it is.
But specifically you, like what are you driven to help your clients do? Let's talk about, you've got this great experience now, and you've worked under some greats, but you obviously have those same great qualities there. What is it that you're looking for in your client, in helping them do?
Yeah, it's a great question, by the way. So we really help coaches, consultants, experts build profitable businesses. And so what comes with that, there's two sides. One is the strategic side. The other is the psychology and the mental mindset side, the identity piece of the puzzle. We like to help on all fronts, right? So here's the strategic end, and here's also the mindset psychology piece. Part of the drive to directly answer your question there, because I kept skirting it, not intentionally, but our driving force is we want to help people that are helping people. And in turn, here's the other cool piece, we get to help even more people. A huge part of what we do in helping our coaches who can then go out and help their ideal clients, a huge part of our mission and the contribution into that is we're also helping children in orphanages in the Philippines.
Mhm.
So
Very
like
nice.
as an example, one of the services we provide, we do VA placements and we do some organic marketing, deliverables done for you type services. Every time we bring on a new client, we actually help provide a child in an orphanage education for a year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it's this cool business model that we've crafted where it's like, hey, let's go out and help the people who have a heart to serve, who want to help. And then we get to help even more people, and then they're helping people. So there's this real ripple effect dynamic that gets to happen.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, you just gave me chills.
Yeah.
I love that.
I just believe that that's at the core of everything that we do. And we actually had a guest on earlier, and we were having the same conversation about the importance of the takeaway for the people we're serving, and it's, I'm in the real estate space. And so I got a small boutique brokerage. Don't really, if I get the huge numbers, fine. I don't really go after the huge numbers. I want my people to be 3 times more successful than the average agent. And I want all of my clients to be helped to solve the problems that they want. Trying to articulate the true value add, I think, falls into the place of how willing you are to help that other person, whether you get paid or not. Would you
true.
agree with that? You think that that's, I mean, we've got to approach whatever our coaching, our authorship, our speaking, even our bricks and mortar style businesses, like, okay, I may not get paid out of this guy, but I helped him achieve something that he truly just wanted to achieve, and it didn't cost me anything.
I love that. And I feel honestly, and we could take this conversation in a whole different direction, but I think that so much of what the world's missing is that authenticity and people
Yeah.
really bringing their values to the table. It's one of those elements that's been woven away from our educational system. It's been woven away from a lot of the business world. When you look at a lot of the social media and approach, it can be a slippery slope. And it's one of the beautiful things of what you do is you guys helping people craft and find their authentic voice, or be able to brand that, or to be able to bring that to the table and help them market who they really are versus, just copying the next person. And there's been a lot of people in that space who have just said, find somebody who's doing it, just copy it. And
Right. No,
danger.
that's not you.
No,
That's
no,
not you.
I can tell you that every day we hear that. It's like, I want a logo like so-and-so's. I want a brand like so-and-so's. It's like, well, you're in the wrong place,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't
need
do
your
that.
brand.
You want a brand that's authentically you. So yeah, I understand that. And I think too, what a lot of people miss is, it's our individuality that brings us all together.
Right.
That causes me to want to help you because you have a different mission than me, right? You have things that you believe in and care very much about may be different. They may be the same, but they may be different from me. But your reason for wanting to do those things is certainly different from mine. And I think that that's what brings us together in this beautiful tapestry of life.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
well said.
Well, I want to lean more into the family dynamic here, Brooke, if you don't mind. You mentioned something when we first talked that you call passionate parenting, and you say it's anything but typical, and you've intrigued me with that. So tell me what you mean by passionate parenting.
So passionate parenting for us, my wife and I, this was back in 2016. Crazy story. Won't go into all the gory details, but she ended up my wife broke both of her legs. So we were walking out of a restaurant. She was holding our baby, and went to step off the curb, rolled off the curb, broke one leg, went to protect the baby, rolled the other way, broke the other one. It was,
Oh my
it was
heavens.
a ton of fun, as you can imagine. But what ended up happening is through her healing. So she was, laid up in bed for about 6 months while she healed.
Mhm.
And towards the end of that 6-month window, she messaged me. She goes, "Hey, can you get me a map of the United States?" I'm like, "Sure." Like, I was busy in the middle of my workday, wasn't thinking anything of it. So I'm like, "Sure." Ordered her map. Next day, it popped into the house, put it on the wall, went back to work. At the end of that business day, I came in and there was like Post-it notes and tacks all over the whole freaking map. And I'm like, "What's happening?" And she goes, "So I've been giving it a lot of thought." She goes, "I think we should let go of everything, and I think we should go on the road and have an adventure."
Yes.
I'm like, interesting. All right. So now, again, I was working for Tony. I was working from home. We had a 1-year-old. That was who she was holding at the point when she got hurt. And then we had a 3-year-old, and we had 2 dogs. And I'm like, how the hell are we going to make this work? Okay. And I had just taken over another department for Tony. So I had 4 different divisions I was overseeing. So I was rather busy with a wife who was laid up and all the rest of the details there. And what was really interesting is we spent about 6 months letting go of the mass majority of all of our belongings and figuring out how to go on the road with our family and do this adventure. In that, we saw our kids like massively shift in terms of how they engaged with us, how they engaged with other people, how they participated. And the thing that was really fascinating is we just started asking a lot of different questions, right? And explaining to the kids like, "Oh, we're no longer in California. Like, we just crossed a bridge. We're in Arizona now. And like, here's the laws of what you can and can't do in Arizona." And then we cross the next line. We're like, "Well, here's what you can and can't do in New Mexico. And here's what you can and can't do in Colorado." Like, it just became this interesting dialogue that opened up. And what we found was as we started asking these questions, we really started to explore how our schooling experience was as we were kids. We're like, if we were to go back in time, if we had the choice, how would we have done it? And that just like opened Pandora's box of how do we want to do this with our kids? And so the whole concept of what we did is we crafted and we started researching and looking at other different pieces like democratic schools and just some different approaches. But we ultimately came down to was, what if we got to spend our life learning and participating in only the things we were most passionate about? Like, how much quicker would we learn? How much more would we dig in? How much different would our life experience be versus being forced to learn stuff that never really appealed to us in the first place? And then we were told that we were dumb or we were smart if we got good grades in it. And then in the end of it, to not even use 98% of it, right? So there was just a lot of this conflicting conversation that came up. And through that, we really started to craft our own way of raising them, which was whatever they're passionate in, we immerse with them in that. And then we teach them through there. So like, example, my kids are watching anime at this present point in time. I don't know if you can hear them in the background, but they're laughing, having a good time.
No, we can't.
They learned how to read by reading subtitles because they couldn't speak Japanese. And so they taught themselves how to read very quickly at 3 years old, right? They then got super into like the art and the culture of Japan. Now they're both teaching each other how to learn how to speak Japanese. And so that's really kind of the dynamic and the core ethos of it is whatever you're passionate about, let's immerse.
Yes.
Because then it's no longer learning. It's just living a passionate life.
Oh, it's bringing them up in the way they will go.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yes.
And Brooke, I have to share this with you. So there's no coincidence that we're here today. There are no coincidences in life, right? My daughter, when she was 7 or 8 years old, she borrowed a manga book from her cousin, which is Japanese comic book. Okay.
Yep.
And then she became interested in anime. And then she became interested in J-pop, Japanese pop music, and then Japanese fashion and so forth. And this went on from the time she was 8 or so until she was 16. And I said to her, look, by that time, I knew it wasn't a passing phase. It was something that she was very passionate about, to your point. And so I said to her, I'll take you to Japan next year between your junior and senior year if you figure out a way to pay me back. And so we decided she would write a book, and it's called Katie's Journey, One Teen's Journey to Japan. And
So rad.
And throughout that book, there are 45 QR codes that you can scan as you're reading about where we are, that actually you can see her in place where we are. I'd like to send the 2 of these books to your kids.
Oh, heck yeah. See, now I'm getting goosebumps.
Well, we had such a beautiful journey together. Like we laugh and laugh because, we were like mother and daughter, were like, at each other's throats, the first 3 days. But she, to your other point, in letting them grow from their strengths, I can say from experience that before this trip, she was a very timid, very introverted individual. And she's still introverted in her own ways, but very timid. And she refused to drive, even though she had her driver's license. She was absolutely terrified of it. We got to Japan, and that girl knew how to work the train stations, and they're so complex. Like I don't even know how to do it now. She learned how to get us from point to point, and she came back with such a sense of confidence. She immediately gets in her car and she never mentions not driving again.
That's awesome.
It was an amazing thing. So thank you for letting me go on about this. And this was intended to be about you, but I just connected with you so strongly on that point and so appreciate what you're doing with your kids. And now they're teaching each other Japanese. Bravo.
Well, to that end,
brilliant.
I'm glad you shared your story within that too, because I think there's something that happens with us as adults. We create such a resistance to learning or trying new things, and we're waiting for somebody else to tell us to do it because that's what we get conditioned in the traditional schooling, path. Or we're also told that if we don't have a degree that we're not good enough, or we're not strong enough, or we're not smart enough, which is complete BS.
Yes.
When we're passionate about things, we learn 20 times faster. We retain 20 times more. And when that passion is there, especially when you look at people who are passionate about their business, our first engagement, it was one of the things that struck me as I was like, wow, this woman's really passionate about what she's doing. And it was interesting because our first engagement, we had there was a few different people that were in our Zoom meeting. You could tell who was heart driven, like wanted to make a go of the impact they were having. And you were the one running the meeting. So I would hope you were passionate about what you were talking about. But it was very interesting to see people who couldn't put the words of their passion behind it because it was more they wanted to make money or there's something to that effect. yeah, no, it's beautiful when you see that play out. It absolutely is.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for those kind words, by the way. Yeah, we meet some amazing, magical people like you know, throughout those Zoom sessions, and just having that opportunity to get to meet people, and find out. And sometimes you'd be surprised, Brooke. Sometimes that it might seem like they don't know how to express it because they don't know how to your point, they don't know how to put it into words. That could just be because they didn't have that background of knowing how to put that into words. And
Right.
that's why our company exists, right? Is helping people
Beautiful.
figure out, how do I say this in a way that gets my passion across but attracts the people who want to be part of what I'm building, right?
Mhm.
And so and you just have this magnetic, you know, personality, and no wonder from your entire background and the way that you and your wife raise your children, it's also obvious, you know, where that comes from. It comes from inside out, right?
Mhm.
So I love what you're doing, and so glad we asked that question about passionate parenting, because I had just assumed that it would just be teach your kids, you know, passions in life and et cetera, but leading them toward their strength. How did you say that, Michael?
In the way that they will go,
There you
like
go.
in their natural bent, and we all have a personal story that we're building. Even though we grow up in nice, wonderful families with great parents and stuff, all kids are different. All humans are different, and we're all part of that tapestry being created. I love the fact that y'all got and went on the road, because in my opinion, travel and seeing how other cultures do it, even inside the United States, how other cultures do it, how they treat each other, what they're like, and then especially abroad. I just feel like it's the greatest education you can give adults and children. If you can start it young, you're way ahead of the curve, because it's such an education. So
Yeah.
I applaud y'all for that. Yeah.
Traveling abroad was definitely another eye opener. But yeah, I mean, to your point, even here, even in the U.S., the imaginary lines and these imaginary boundaries and these imaginary pieces. It's like there's so many beautiful people, and there's so much beautiful culture that's even a county away. And a lot of times we get stuck in our bubble. So
for sure. Tanya and I were out riding Saturday, going to visit family for Easter. And we stopped at this place, the seafood market we found, to get some food. And number one, it was a fine. But on the way there, I saw this, a Mexican restaurant, and I did not know what their name was. And their whole description of their restaurant was in Spanish. And I told her, I was like, that's the next Mexican restaurant we're going to, because I guarantee you it is fantastic. You just knew, right off the bat, because it's truly authentic, you know?
Authentic. Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So you can find it even in your own hometown, listener.
That's true.
Yep.
Brooke, what's next for you? Tell us what projects you're working on now, and what's most at the center of your heart right now.
Yeah, right now we have some incredible pieces of what we're doing. We're working in the weeds with coaches, consultants, experts, people that are in that industry, in that space. We actually have an event that's coming up this week. So we actually help coaches build profitable businesses. There's a lot of people out there that are sharing different parts of the business, but we really hone in on helping coaches become profitable. And so we have a one-day event that's actually happening later this week, where we get into the weeds and we help them figure out what the rocks are and what they need to be working on to get and take their business to that next level. So that's one of the things that's like in the immediate sphere, the one that's keeping me up at night, just in terms of getting it prepared and ready to roll. But yeah, we've got some really cool things happening this year, and some cool services that are right around the corner for our clients on that side too.
Oh, that sounds great. Well, make sure we'll drop the link in the show notes here to anything. I doubt it'll make it in time for this particular event, but the next event, hey, let's tee them up for it. We'll send them your way.
I'd love that. Appreciate that.
You bet. You bet.
So you want to tell the audience the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So that's simplest, easiest way. empirepartners.io is our website. And all the things we do in there, our masterminds, our trainings, there's tons of free tools that are in there for anyone who's either wanting to get into the space, or if you're in the space and what we like to refer to as the messy middle, we have a ton of tools to help you get out of there. But yeah, empirepartners.io is the best spot to hunt us down, track us down, and dig into our world.
Awesome.
Brooke, thank you so much for taking time with us. It's been such a pleasure to get to know somebody that's so accomplished and has charted a course toward your own success now. And congratulations on all of
Yeah,
that.
and passionate clearly about what you're doing.
Thank you for having me on and for allowing me to hopefully reach some more people who could benefit. So thank you guys.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers, or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at BrandFaceGuide.com.